Willow, Season 3, Chapter 4, The High Price of a Night Off. Oh man, I hate being the adult. I mean, I really hate it. You'd think I'd be used to it. Over a year of owning an adult business, doing adult things. I've signed a bunch of papers to secure the succession and make the Willow my own. I pay bills and fill out tax forms for 2 countries. I even have an employee, and I have hour-long meetings with an accountant once a month. I own real estate, manage inventory, pay a supplier for goods, calculate margins, do the register. I clean, cook, maintain, and cater. Okay, I rely on Olivia for a lot of business tips and go running to Helen Edna Notary Public whenever any paperwork looks too daunting for me to handle alone. But damn it, I do a lot of adulting in a day's work. It's all fine, except that usually the only child I'm taking care of is myself. I don't have to babysit anyone but my raccoon, and frankly, sometimes it feels like she's the one that takes care of me. After all, she is more than 4 times my age. Tonight, I've had to be the mom to the assembled masses of kids that attend the Donsalites and ask each and every one of them if they knew what happened to Petunia. The whole thing became a blur. I ran back to the clearing and to Fred, who was still spinning his tunes off his phone. Have you ever run while full of cookies, samosas, and cheap liquor? It's not a great feeling. In fact, it's so bad that by the time I got to the DJ table, I almost passed out. Twice. Loud music and spinning, manic lights hit me hard. Tripping over some twigs didn't help either. I caught myself before crashing to the ground, but I could taste the fried dough crawling back up my throat as I spoke. "Pete!" I screamed, desperate to be heard. Fred didn't react except with a smile and a nod before he resumed his head bopping. "Pete," I say again. "She's gone." "Yeah, I know," Fred says, barely audible over the music. "No, I mean, she's disappeared. The lights took her." I'd come to understand that Fred and Petunia were an item. She'd never said anything explicit about it, but there was mention of a man in her life, and she and Fred were at the cafe together. Even if I got that wrong, they're still friends. I expected more of a reaction. "Nuh-uh," he said, still smiling. "Lights don't take anyone. They're just lights." I want to shake his scrawny little shoulders and stop him from swaying and dancing so he'll listen to me. His friend is gone. My friend is gone. And he's going about his business like nothing could stop this party. Like the dancing and the drinking are more important than Petunia's whereabouts. "I saw it, Fred. The lights gathered around her, and when they were gone, so was she." Finally, he stands still and starts paying attention. He turns to face me, but his smile is still there, splitting his face with a placidity that makes me want to punch every tooth out of his mouth. Then he goes so far as to put a hand on my cheek like I'm the child. "She's fine," he says with just a hint of condescension. "She told me she was going home." I look around. The place is like a nightclub, and I'm seeing it through the lens of the drunk. Everything is washed with bright colors and drowned in fog. There are more of the orbs and lights than ever before. Dozens of them swarm around laughing dancers, almost obscuring them completely before breaking off to fly through the branches. A small rainbow tornado spins, dervish-like, in the middle of the clearing as a half-dozen dancers cheer it on. The louder the cheer, the more manic the lights become. Meanwhile, I'm standing by the edge, nauseous, confused, and afraid. I want to stuff Fred's phone up his nose, but the anger is gone as fast as it came. He's not talking down to me because he thinks I'm a child or an idiot. He's doing it because I'm absolutely sloshed and talking nonsense. He's smiling and laughing because Miriam Dufour, the mighty owner of the Aquilo Cafe, is raving drunk. It makes me mortal to him. It humanizes me, and after a moment to think it over, I'm okay with it. Fred's probably right. Pete's gone home, or to see whoever her real lover is. Whatever the case, it's no business of mine. I witnessed her final dance with the Donselites, and through vodka-tinted glasses, mistook it for magical abduction. I giggle, and for a second, think I'm going to throw up again. Instead, it's a most unladylike belch that escapes my throat. The taste at the back of my mouth is horrendous, a mix of chocolate, onions, and half-digested chicken, but at least it takes the edge off the nausea. Here. Annabelle puts another plastic cup in my hand, closing my fingers around its sides. Oh, God, no, I laugh. I've had more than enough. I'm going to be sick. She smiles. I know. It's water. You need to hydrate. Turns out I'm not going to be the adult tonight. And to be honest, I'm fine with that turn of events. It's what Olivia knew I needed. It's what attracted me to come here again. My mind, so used to the paranoia of living in such proximity with ghosts and devils, having had more than one brush with death, is making up reasons for me to be afraid. Reassured, comforted, and with some fresh water to help settle my troubled stomach, I lean back on the table. I watch Gulliver. Thankfully, he didn't notice me making a scene. His long, muscular limbs move with the music. He's lost in his own world. Not exactly graceful, but because of his physique and the sheer size of him, it makes him quite the spectacle. I laugh to myself, thinking of the performance Pete is missing by not being here. Cold water inside of me and cold wind on my skin work in tandem to clear my mind and settle my nerves. My thoughts wander, thinking back to my friends in Montreal. They would love this. Maybe I should invite some of them to come down. Or maybe Eric could drive over for the weekend. He's always been into the bar scene far more than I have. He'd get quite the kick out of this. Maybe that's the introduction I need before I tell him about all the demons and witchcraft bits. I'm about as back to normal as I can hope to be. The panic has made room for a mellow mood that I may not have felt in years. Thoughts of packing it in and going home cross my mind. I still have a business to run in the morning. Being the adult. Also, there's something to be said about leaving on a high note. But that's when the fly lands in my soup. Thomas Sinclair sidles up next to me. He too has a plastic cup, though I suspect his contains the vodka and juice that's so popular with the crowd here. He's still wearing his heavy coat and his fanny pack around his waist. Sweat is beading on his forehead, but I doubt he's done any dancing. He doesn't look the type. The confusion and amazement that's usually plastered on his face has been replaced by something else altogether. I don't want to call it worry. Worry is for people who care. And while I don't think he's incapable of caring, Thomas Sinclair is, as far as I can tell, more journalist than compassionate human. No, that's not fair to journalists or Sinclair. He strikes me as that special breed of person who's all about the story. He cares, but about the tale, not the people. The empathy is there. I can see it in his eyes as he nudges me to get my attention. I can feel it in the way his hand clamps down on my upper arm. I can hear it in his voice when he whispers, "I saw it too." Afternoon sun hits the top of Henry Figg's truck, making it shine despite a thick layer of dust and soil that covers it. He puts a heavy crate of apples in my waiting arms and frowns. "She told you about the ice cider, didn't she?" I don't see Henry very often. If I don't go out to the Figs orchard, it's very unlikely that I'll run into him in town. Olivia's husband could give a master class on the science of being a grouchy old man. Sometimes when I go over for dinner, or on the rare occasions when he'll drop by the Aquilo, I catch myself musing about him. I wonder if he's some mysterious figure from the town's past, running away from a youth he'd rather forget, or As Olivia wastes no opportunity pointing out, just a habitual grump. Today, I intercepted him during his delivery at the local grocery. His old pickup truck, as red as the apples he grows, is filled with crates that I'm helping him unload. She might have mentioned the ice cider, I say, huffing as I pick up a particularly heavy load. Fool of a woman, he growls. Couldn't be happy just growing apples. We had to get into the cider business. I thought you liked making cider. Mechanical doors hiss open to allow us into the small grocery where an employee waves at Henry, pointing us towards the fruit aisle. I do. But then there was the pears, then the strawberry ciders. Now it's this fancy ice cider. She's just never happy with what we're doing. Always got to look to the next thing. Always being so ambitious. Right. And I thought the ice cider would be the safe subject. Henry has the attitude of a particularly surly cat on a good day, but he can get shockingly agitated when certain subjects are brought up. Demons is one. But it's not the cider I wanted to ask you about, I say, hoping for the best. I wanted to know about the Donsolites. He stops, dead in his tracks. His shoulders, usually strong and held high despite his age, slump. His eyes get lost among the apples in his crate. And why would you think I know anything about dancing lights? Olivia's the one who suggested I look into them, so I figured maybe. So you figured that old Henry Figg kept some secret knowledge about them? The irritation isn't a surprise. Henry doesn't like to talk about magic. I tried to coax answers from him before, about other things. There are rumors about him. Weird rumors. But rumors have a magic of their own. Through their very existence, they demand to be confirmed or denied. I guess, in a way, that's the whole business model behind Thomas Sinclair's media empire. He sells facts to those who've been made hungry by rumors. That makes his job sound like mine. The very notion tastes like bile in my mouth. Am I wrong? I ask. Henry's head shakes, not as a reply to me, but as an expression of his frustration. Back straight again, he picks up his walk towards the fruit aisle. There's more spring to his steps now, as if the faster he can acquit himself of this task, the faster he can be rid of me. Dead wrong, he says with some amount of finality. He puts his crate down on a display table next to some pears and oranges. There are more boxes with the Fig Orchard logo at his feet, but those are empty. I don't expect much more from Henry. He takes the crate from my hands and puts it next to its sibling, completing the display. Then he bends over to pick up the empties and, to my surprise, keeps going. All I know is what most people who've grown up in Aquilo know. The lights have always been there. They show up in the fall with the first new moon and disappear with the first snow. That's it. The walk back to the truck is a little tense. For something so innocuous, Henry sure carries a lot of baggage when talking about it. The empty crates seem almost heavier than the ones we just brought in. Have you ever heard about anyone being taken by the lights? No. The answer comes quick. If I were a betting woman, I'd say he expected the question, which gives his reply a bit of a dishonest aftertaste. Kids visit the lights. They dance. It's like a harvest festival with a bonfire. Nothing more. He throws the crates into the back of his truck, their clatter an expression of his own annoyance. I'm unconvinced, I say in defiance of the answer he gave and against my better judgment. He looks at me with all the intensity his aged features can provide. Creased and long wrinkles that look like a canal system on his tired face squeeze around his eyes. I always get along with Henry, except when we talk about magic or the history of Aquilo. Where Olivia is elusive on the subject, like an eel that slips between one's fingers, Henry is like a crab, ready to snap when he feels threatened. Finally, he opens the driver's door and gets in his truck. I don't care, he says, turning the ignition. The truck growls to life, and without even a polite goodbye, Henry Figg drives away. I should go to the cops. But that's always the problem with Aquilo, isn't it? How do you bring up all the weird stuff that goes on here to the authorities? I'm on very good terms with two of the local detectives. Wilson and Lamore were both investigating the hunger demon that lurked behind the cafe since before I ever arrived here. They didn't know it was a demon. As a matter of fact, they still don't. But their constant presence at the Aquilo got me on a first-name basis with them. I think. That doesn't mean I can walk up to either and demand they investigate why fairy lights in the woods might have taken my new friend. Oh, and please disregard all the underage drinking. Thanks. Hell, I don't even know if Petunia's really disappeared at all. Fred says she just went home, and I was kind of drunk. Maybe this is how the lights say goodbye to those who've attended the dances for a while. No one else seems to think anything is wrong. So why do I feel like there is? Because Thomas Sinclair, the conspiracy theorist, the outsider, claims he saw the same thing I did? I really shouldn't have taken his camera away after all. Maybe he'd have captured some footage of what the lights did. With some luck, with a bit of digital wizardry or photographic miracle, it would have shown Petunia calmly leaving the forest while we were blinded by the lights. Case closed. I walk through the door to the Aquilo, where I'm welcomed by chimes and the nervous salutations of Stefan. It's a modest attendance, as it tends to be after the noon rush but before the evening crowd. This is the kind of shift I give Stefan. The easy ones, where no one is likely to show up with any special requests. Which is important, as special requests in this town can get very complicated. Hey, Steph? I sit at the front of the counter, which is appropriately empty at this time of day. His reaction is to immediately serve me a cup of coffee. I taught him well, drilling the importance of anticipating what a customer wants and remembering their usual. For the first week, Stefan would walk around the Aquilo with a notepad, and every time someone placed an order, he'd write it down. Later, he entered all of his notes on a spreadsheet that he keeps on his phone. Whenever someone makes an order and he can't remember what it is, he just looks it up. At first, I thought he was just playing around on social media in the middle of doing his job. Almost chewed him out right in front of customers for it, too. He puts the coffee in front of me and then stares at my face like he's trying to see through my head. He holds his chin with his right hand while his left eyebrow crawls up his forehead. Strudel, he declares, sounding like a game show contestant. He's always trying to guess what I might want to eat, and every time I tell him he got it right. Not because he did, but because I don't care. Everything I make is delicious, otherwise I wouldn't make it, let alone sell it. Sure. I watch him scramble to get an apple strudel on a plate. Do you know a girl named Petunia? His head shoots up and he gets that same expression again, the one where he's trying to guess at something. Petunia Greenfield or Petunia Marshall? Wait, there's more than one Petunia in Aquilo? I know of 3, he says, putting the plate down in front of me. But Petunia Harris was killed about a year before you took over for Doris. Of course, of all the small towns in the world, it has to be Aquilo that has not 2, but 3 women named Petunia. Right, of course. I'm talking about the one who's about your age, brown hair, mouthy. She's, I look around to see if there are any of the cloud worshippers in the dining room. I never know what to call them. She might have been wearing white robes last time she came here. Stefan's eyebrows equalize over his eyes, and he points at me like I'm a child who got a particularly easy question right. Ah, yes, that's Petunia Marshall. She's Pilvist. I was just about to put the strudel in my mouth when he says that word. Pilvist. I'm sorry, what? Pilvist. She worships the great cloud. That's why she has the white robes, big into croissants. Mother, I hate being talked down to by an employee. Oh, right. I act like I just forgot, but I swear, in all my time in Aquilo, it's the first time I've heard that word. Anyway, he says, picking up his bus tray, that's the Petunia you're looking for. Well, at least now I have a full name for her, so that's a start. At last, feeling some measure of satisfaction, I take a sip of my coffee and pick up my strudel. There's a smile on my face as I start to put together what my next move will be. Probably track her down. See that she's fine, and with everything being confirmed as just the delusions of a drunk Miriam Dufour, I can get back to enjoying myself. My mouth open, I can smell the apples and a hint of cinnamon I'm a moment from enjoying. When the front door bursts open. Like almost every business in the world, there's a spring system on the front door of the Aquilo. It's meant to keep it from slamming shut, but it also makes it harder to push open. Whoever is coming in must be in one hell of a hurry to get a cookie and coffee because they damn near rip the door from its hinges and set the chimes clattering instead of singing their normal lovely song. Outraged, I drop my strudel and stand. I had this place rebuilt just last year. Who the hell thinks they have the right to tear it all down again? But then I see it. Their eyes. They wear the robes and they have the braids. 2 people, a man and a woman. He's got curly long hair and she has straight brown hair. More importantly, I know she only drinks green tea and has been known to try a biscotti when I attempt to make them. He drinks black coffee and eats oatmeal cookies. They're often here with Ian, the leader of these pilvists. But all that is immaterial. None of those details matter. Because of their eyes. They are full of the kind of distress that only comes from a life and death situation. They're the eyes of the desperate, of those with no options left. "Miss Dufour?" the woman asks, rushing to stand next to me at the counter. "They won't help us. You have to help us." I look at her, and finally I see it, the family resemblance. It's in her voice, but also in her mannerisms, the way she reaches to grab my arm with urgency, but also a touch that doesn't feel rude. It's the same as when strange fingers put a plastic cup in my hands 2 nights ago. "Ms. Marshall?" I was right. They are Petunia's parents. More to the point, she did, in fact, disappear. Sonia and Matthew are their names, and they are very difficult to talk to. Matthew barely manages to squeeze a sentence in, usually accentuating his partner's panic with his own words of distress. Sonia speaks in broken statements, having a very difficult time getting her point across. So, my first order of business is to get them to settle down at a table. Stefan really steps up. Within minutes, while I'm still patting Sonia's hand and reassuring Matthew that everything, whatever it is, will be fine, he has a cup of green tea, a mug of black coffee, and 4 oatmeal cookies on a plate. Without a word, he places them on the table and excuses himself. It's like he knows enough of what I'm about not to interfere. Finally, once everyone's calm again, with a few sips of hot liquid and a nibble of some oatmeal, I ask the obvious question, the one that's been floating in the air ever since the marshals slammed the door open. "Is it about Petunia?" Sonia nods, wiping a tear with the sleeve of her robes. "She didn't come home last night," Matthew continues. And I know what you're going to say, because you're her age and all that. We know it's only been 1 night, but Petunia never stays the night over anyone's without telling us. Ever." "She wouldn't put us through this," emphasizes Sonia. "But wouldn't she?" I was no angel as a teenager, but before I moved out from my parents and in with Trevor, there were plenty of nights I would stay out, especially after we'd gone out for a drink. I'd get scolded when I got home, but that was usually more of a reflection of whatever other trouble I'd be in at the time, not how worried my parents were. It's hard to imagine confident and outgoing Pete as the obedient home-before-bed type of girl. That being said, there remained another obvious question that I had to get out of the way. However, before I could do so, the door chimes sang their song once more. I wanted to ignore it. After all, I was busy. I was busy doing what it was I imagined Doris did when she was alive. Sit with the troubled and weary of Aquilo, listen to their problems, and concoct magical solutions for them that she would later mix, bake, and cook in her kitchen. Stefan was there, so any food and drink that needed serving would be handled. Of that, I was confident. So, back to my question for the marshals, right? What about the police? Assuming they went to the cops, the marshals were probably not given great news if they wound up in my cafe, but still, I have to ask. I don't know how much truth there is to this waiting period before being able to report someone missing, but push comes to shove, maybe I can pressure Wilson into doing something? "No!" A voice loud and boisterous booms from behind me. "Don't get the cops involved." It's him. The short, hurried footsteps confirm it without me turning around. He pulls a chair at our table, completely uninvited, and sits down. "Not until we know they're not involved," he finishes. Thomas Sinclair. He's dressed down considerably since last night. Instead of the heavy winter coat and arsenal of recording and photography equipment, he's got a thick leather jacket and only a notepad. There's a manic way about him as he grabs a cookie from the plate. "You never know with the police," he concludes as if everything he said made sense. I'm about to intervene, to ask him as politely as I possibly can to get lost, preferably back to wherever he comes from and not come back. Sonia speaks before I can, but not to share my annoyance. "No," she says. "Of course, that's why we came here." "Smart," Sinclair adds, nodding and chewing his stolen cookie. "I bet the cops don't look too kindly on pilvists, do they?" "Indeed," Matthew agrees. "They do not." What the hell is going on? "Wait," I say, turning to Sinclair. "Do you know about the faith?" He blinks at me, his tiny blue eyes again awash with shock and confusion. I might as well have told him the moon was hollow. And again, he'd probably agree with that. "Of course," he says. "Haven't you read the tracts?" "No," I want to yell at him. "I have not read the stupid tracts. I'm not shopping for a new belief system or religion. Why would I read the tracts? In fact, why did he read them?" That's an easy answer, though. For his podcast, of course. Ian, Pete, Sonia, and all of them. Their faith is just more material for his fans to ingest. No, I say, trying to sound comforting. I know Detective Wilson. I'm sure I can get him or Detective Lamore to help. Sonia shakes her head, slowly at first, but with increasing vigor, like the more she thinks about it, the worse her thoughts become. Frankly, it's a little alarming. "Please," she says, "don't bring Lamore into this, and especially don't bring it up to Aaron Wilson." She sounds genuinely afraid and maybe even a little angry, especially at Wilson. Forget the tracts. I should ask Ian why he and his people have such a fraught relationship with the local cops. And I thought they got along. They nod at each other when they come in and out of the Aquilo. They never exchange more than a few words, but always with the utmost civility. "Besides," Sinclair pipes up again, and I dread what will come out of his mouth next. "We know what happened to Petunia." No, we don't. I don't know what he's about to prattle on about, but I would rather not hear it. Sitting across from us are two distraught parents worried about their daughter. I was sure she'd gone home. I'd been assured by her friends that that's what she did. Apparently, that's not the case. Now, maybe she went to a friend after all. Maybe she ran away. And yes, of course, this is Aquilo, so maybe she was consumed by a swarm of luminescent supernatural entities. But neither I nor Thomas Sinclair know which of these options is what we saw. Or didn't see, for that matter, because we were both blinded. "Well, we know she vanished in the woods." "Yes, but we don't know where she... Was she at one of those damn parties?" Sonia interrupts me. Worry has made room for anger. I wouldn't say her fear has been completely erased. It's still there, as an aftertaste to her frustration. It's no longer her innocent daughter that's missing. It's her disobedient child, but still her own flesh and blood. "Yes." Sinclair is far too eager to confirm. "She invited us there." "Is that true, Miriam?" Matthew asks, refocusing his own irritation in my direction. "It is, but again, I'm interrupted. Which, let me tell you, in my own cafe, while I'm trying to help, is getting really old, really fast." "We were there to make sure everyone was behaving," Sinclair says before I can give my own explanation. Which would have been the truth and, to be honest, would not have gone as well as his lie. The marshals aren't placated by his words, but they seem much more willing to entertain what he's got to say. "Yes," I agree. "Like chaperones." The marshals frown, still unconvinced, but we're at least part of the way there. They seem to be waiting for me to add more. "So," Matthew asks, "where is she then?" I don't know. See, this is why I don't like lying. It's not the duplicity or the moral ambiguity. It's that you always get caught, and it's embarrassing when you do. All I did was agree with someone else's lie, and I'm the one who looks like a fool. That's what I was here to tell Miss Dufour, Sinclair says. The girl, Petunia. Petunia. She left to take care of her friend Annabelle? Another lie, and not a very convincing one, but in for an ounce. Oh, yeah, that makes sense, I say, turning back to the marshals. I guess it is a good thing you didn't go to the police. But Sonia and Matthew do not seem mollified. Again, it's the target of their irritation that shifts. I don't like that Annabelle, Sonia says. I'd rather Petunia have come home, or at least called. I'm sure she must have had a reason, Sinclair explains. And you must be proud. She's really living up to the tenets of the caregiver. There's some hesitation, but after looking at each other for confirmation, Sonia and Matthew seem to calm down. Rain blessings upon those in greatest need. We did raise her well, Sonia says, still uncertain but far from the distressed mess she was when she barged in. The marshals trade a few more pleasantries with Thomas Sinclair, barely acknowledging me in the process. They finish their tea and coffee and offer to pay. I decline, claiming that seeing them reassured is payment enough. It's not really. As I watch them leave, I ponder the lie I now have to live with because of Sinclair. Well, he says, taking another cookie, that went well. What was that? It's my turn to be outraged. Why did you tell them Petunia was at a friend's place? We have no idea where she's gone. Exactly. He's as excited as a child on the way to the circus. And now we get to figure it out. We? Of course. We were both there when she disappeared. It's our responsibility to get to the bottom of this. We are not a team, I say, trying to dispel his Scooby-Doo fantasy before it goes any further. Too late. One thing I don't understand, though. He looks at me, and I can see the fresh conspiracy taking root behind those curious eyes of his. If they didn't know their daughter was out dancing with those lights, why did they come to you? I think I'm starting to see what Gulliver sees in this ridiculous man. The humor, sure, but there's a curious intelligence behind that red, confused face. And I see it for the threat that it is. Because, I say, stealing a page from his book and making up a nonsense excuse. My cookies are amazing. Aquilo is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Aquilo to donate. Aquilo has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Aquilo for details. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under the username Aquilo.